Hello friends, it's Lisa. So today I am going to be doing a tier ranking video where I am going to be tier ranking all of the books that I have read so far this year. I'm not someone that does like monthly wrap-ups or recent reads. I just don't enjoy filming those types of videos, but for some reason filming a tier ranking seemed more appealing, and I thought it would be a cool way to show what I've read this year, where I haven't talked about every single book that I've read because I wasn't vlogging or whatever it may be. I just thought it would be a cool way to chat about all 44 books that I've read so far this year. And I know 44 is not a very satisfying number, but that's just the way it is. But 44 books is still a lot of books to talk about, so let's just get into the tier ranking. I might not spend too much time giving a synopsis for each book. I might not even give one, so I really just want to give you my thoughts on the books that I've read so far. But I have my laptop right here, and let's just go through the different tiers that I have. So I didn't do anything extremely creative. I just wanted it to be kind of straightforward, and I was gonna do tiers that were more funny or whatever, but my brain just couldn't think of anything. So the top tier, like the best tier that these books could get in, is my new favorite tier. These are gonna be the books that end up on my favorite list of the year video. Then next I have a really like this tier, not quite a new favorite, but still a book that I really enjoyed and would still recommend. Then I have my middle tier, which is the it's fine tier, because whenever I'm talking about books that I feel very neutral on, I always just say, it's fine. It was fine. So we have the it's fine tier, then the didn't like this tier, which is pretty self-explanatory, and then the bottom tier is the boo tomato tier. Those are the books that I would boo until they get off the stage and throw tomatoes at them, because I really didn't like them. Oh, and then I do have a tier below that are just for the books that I am not going to rate in this video. There's like a handful of books that I'm reading for themed reading vlogs, some secret TBRs that have not come out yet, so I want to keep my thoughts to myself for a little bit longer, but I was thinking of maybe doing a part 2 of this in the second half of the year for the rest of the books that I read this year, so if you want to see that, let me know. But if I do that part 2, then I will tier rank those books when we get to that, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna get started. These books aren't in any particular order. They're pretty just random. They're not in the order I read them. That's just the way the tier maker put them. So let's get started. So the first 3 books I'm just going to go through quickly because they're some of Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter books. Me and my friends Darian and Casey are doing a Shadowhunters read-along all of this year and probably most of next year. It's going to go on for I think quite a while. But we've been making our way through all of the Shadowhunter books, and I feel like I talk about the Shadowhunter books on my channel a lot. So I feel like we all know how I feel about this world and these characters in this series. So the first one that is there is City of Ashes, which I know I just said I love the Shadowhunter books, but this one is one of, if not my least favorite, in all of the Shadowhunter series. So I don't know if I should put it in didn't like this or it's fine, because I'm very biased towards the Shadowhunter books. I'm gonna put it in it's fine because I think I did give it 3 stars, and like I said, I'm totally biased towards these books. Next we have Clockwork Angel, which is the first book in the Infernal Devices series, and this obviously isn't a new favorite, but I'm putting it in the top tier because it is a favorite of mine. This was the 4th time I read Clockwork Angel, so it's not a new favorite, but it is a favorite and it deserves to be on the top tier. I love the Infernal Devices. It's one of my favorite Shadowhunter series. I love Tessa, Jem, and Will. I love how much they love each other. I'm just gonna get emotional, so let's just move on. And then we have City of Bones, which again is kind of hard because like, is it the best book? No, but did I have so much fun reading this book and like doing the first live show for the Shadowhunters read along and everything? Yes. And it is like the start of the Shadowhunter world. So I think I'm gonna put this in. I really like this. Did I really like it? Maybe not, but also there is those emotional attachments to the start of the series, and it was just so much fun to start the Shadowhunters read along, which I will have all the information for that linked below in the description. But yeah, like I said, I am totally biased towards the Shadowhunter book, so these are going to be probably in some weird placements, but you're just going to have to accept me for who I am. Okay, so the next book is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I think I gave this like 3.5 stars. It's probably more like a 3, because the more I think about it, the more I like didn't like it that much. I thought the romance was fine. This is like an enemies to lovers, like office romance. The thing is though, like the first half I just didn't really care. I thought that the like enemies part was a little cheesy. Like her password is literally like I hate Josh forever, and it's like, what mid-20s girl has her password as I hate my coworker forever? Like, it's just weird to me. I don't know. Then the romance kind of started and I was kind of more into it. It does have one of my favorite tropes, which is like the nursing back to health trope. So when that happened, I was like, okay, see you. But then the end not only was something very creepy that I think was supposed to be romantic, but I thought was very creepy, but also the use of the R word was randomly thrown in there for no reason. I feel like I'm gonna put this in its... Why do I do tier ranking videos? Because I never know where to put things in the tiers. I make the tiers and then I still don't know what to do. I think I'm gonna put it in didn't like this because I feel like I lean more towards not liking it than liking it. I feel like that's where the 3-star rating is so tricky for me, because it's like, if it's a 3-star, it could lean more towards the I liked it closer to a 4-star kind of thing, or if it's a 3-star, it could be a low 3-star, which means I didn't really love it that much. Then we have Princess Ever After by Kate O'Neill. This is the same author as the Tea Dragon Society books. This is like a middle grade graphic novel, and it's really, really cute. It's sapphic, which I just think is so great to see in like a middle grade book, and that's just, I don't know, it just made me so happy. And also, like, I thought there was a really good message of like, you don't always need a man to save you, because it's these women like saving themselves and each other, and I just really liked it. So I'm gonna put this in the I really liked this tier. Definitely not a new favorite, but I think for the audience that it's intended to be for, I think it's really great. Then we have The Duchess Steele by Tessa Dare, and I read this for a historical romance reading vlog. It was the first time I was ever reading historical romance, and I loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, but every time I talk about it, I say I'm gonna raise my rating to a 5. It's just me actually trying to remember to change that on Goodreads and Storygraph. So I'm gonna put this in a new favorite, because whenever I think about my favorite books of the year, this is the book that comes to mind, or one of the books that comes to mind. I absolutely loved it. It has like Marriage of Convenience, it has Grumpy and Sunshine, which is like one of my favorite tropes as well, so I just really enjoyed it, and it made me like really want to read even more historical romances. So yes, The Duchess Steele, definitely a new favorite. Then we have Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. And I read this recently, and I read it took me a while to read it, so there are many vlogs of me talking about this book, but I think I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This is one of those books that I think if I were to reread it, I could see it potentially becoming a favorite of mine, and maybe it bumping up to a 5-star. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I still really liked it. And especially once I got to the end and I was like crying reading the last like 5 pages of this book, I knew how much it kind of impacted me and how attached I got to the characters, specifically the one character you're kind of following throughout the entire novel. But there definitely were some moments where it was a bit slow for me and my interest would kind of go in and out. Like there would be times where I was a little bit more engaged with it, and there were times where I was a little bored. So that's why I didn't give it the full 5 stars and why I wouldn't put it on the top tier. But I did really like it, and it did make me cry, so definitely something that I really liked and would recommend. Okay, next we have The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, another romance. I've read a few of those this year. I think it might be my most read genre this year, but this one I think I'm gonna put in I really like this. It's kind of in between it's fine and I really like this, because I wouldn't say I like loved it, but it definitely doesn't deserve to be in the middle tier. So I thought it was really fun. It's about this girl who like needs to learn how to be in a relationship and how to have sex. So then she hires this guy to teach her all these things, and then real feelings might develop, and I just thought it was really fun and really cute. Then we have The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker, and I don't know where to put this one either. This is about this girl who she gets a call from someone who knows her dad, who she hasn't spoken to since she was like 13 or something, and she's now like 23 or something. So it's been a long time since she's talked to him, and this friend of his is telling her that he is sick and he doesn't have, you know, that much longer to live, so she should come and kind of get to know him while she still can. So she ends up going to Alaska to visit her dad, and she meets this guy there, and it's kind of like, again, kind of a hate to love sort of situation. And this is one of those things where I did not care about the romance. I didn't like the romance. I thought the guy was like kind of mean and terrible. Like I didn't like him. At one point he like steals all of her makeup and stuff when she's sleeping and is like, when you start doing this, I'll give it back to you or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's her stuff. Just give it back. It's just like, it was just so annoying. And like the whole messaging of like her being into like makeup and fashion and hair and all of that stuff, meaning that she must be like conceited and she can't care about other people and that she can't be outdoorsy. And like the author really made that character kind of play into that stereotype, and also had like the love interest and like other people shaming her for that. And then kind of at the end of the book, she was like, I don't wear as much makeup anymore because I'm a much more grounded person. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you can do both. You can be like grounded and care about people and be outdoorsy and still want to do a hot pink cut crease eyeshadow look. Like, I don't think those things cancel each other out. So I just didn't love the romance and like the messaging in this book, and the characters themselves I was not a fan of. But the storyline with her dad, I did actually like that. Like, I know that wasn't like the biggest point of this book, it was more of a romance, but I thought the parts with her dad were like the best parts. I did end up full on sobbing reading this book, so I feel like for that reason, I'm gonna put it in It's Fine, because it did make me uncontrollably sob. So I had to be somewhat connected to the story, I feel like, in order to be that emotional about it. Next we have The Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa, and unfortunately I'm gonna put this in Didn't Like This. This was just a fantasy book that didn't really work for me. I didn't really like the pacing. I felt like there were a lot of side quests in this book that didn't really mean anything or add anything to the plot. Like, they were fun at first, but then it was getting to a point where it was like, okay, I just feel like there's no point to this. So I just wasn't the biggest fan. But yeah, it just didn't really work for me. I didn't really connect with the characters. I thought the world was interesting, but I just didn't really care for the writing and the pacing, and just like the overall plot, I guess, was just not really going in ways that I wanted it to. So I didn't love it, unfortunately. Oh, and then we have another Chanticleer book. This is City of Glass. This is the third book in the Mortal Instruments series. If I put City of Bones and I really like this, I'm also gonna put this and I really like this, because I think this is one of the better books in the Mortal Instruments series. I think that like the plot is a lot more interesting. I feel like the characters grow a lot, and I like really start to care about the characters in this third book. In this book, you're also in Idris. You're in the kind of country of the Shadowhunters, which every time there's a book in the Shadowhunter world where we're there, I absolutely love it. I feel like every time we go there, I know something sad and like heartbreaking is gonna happen. So like I don't love it for that, but I also do love being there. So anytime the books are set in Idris or Alicante, I just have a great time. So I did really like that one as well. Then we have The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is the second book in the kind of Kiss Quotient series. This one I didn't like as much. I'm gonna put it in It's Fine. Like, it was an easy audiobook to listen to. It was fun, but I just didn't really love the romance and really love the characters that much. So it was definitely not my favorite, but I still like thought it was fine. I just feel like that book, a lot of characters, especially the main character whose name I can't remember her name, but she made a lot of weird decisions and things that's just like, who would do something like this? Like, at one point she was at a wedding and she found like where the gown was, where like the wedding dress was, and she was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put it on. It's like, what are you doing? Like, it's, I don't know. There was just a lot of weird things that happened in that book, and it just wasn't my favorite. What is happening to my voice? Next we have When the Sky Fell on Splendor. This is by Emily Henry, who is a very popular like rom-com author now. Like, her more recent rom-coms have gotten very popular, but this was a book that she wrote before that. But this is like a YA like sci-fi where this group of teenagers kind of have this weird experience and now think that there's like an alien kind of trying to like communicate with them, and there's just like a weird alien thing happening. I don't even really fully know how to explain this book. I read this for my like Stranger Things reading vlog where I read books that have been compared to the show, and I didn't love this. I'm gonna put this in Didn't Like This. It was not my favorite. I just didn't really connect with the story or the characters, so it made me not really like it that much and feel that invested. So it wasn't my favorite, and because I have a whole vlog where I read it, if you want to know more thoughts, I'll have that linked below. Any vlogs where these books show up and you want to hear more thoughts, I'll have them linked below. Then we have Her Royal Highness, which is the like second book in a like companion duology. We have Prince Charming just right over here, so I'm gonna actually just do these at the same time. So Prince Charming is the first one, and it's following this girl whose sister is getting married to the prince in Scotland. I'm trying to remember the plot of this book as I speak. But because there's kind of a lot of press on her family, she kind of goes to Scotland to, is it Scotland? I think it's Scotland. She goes to Scotland to kind of learn how to be more princessy, I guess, and then she ends up meeting this guy there. And I thought it was cute. I thought both of these were cute. Her Royal Highness is like a companion to that one. It is following this girl who goes to this boarding school in Scotland, and she ends up being roommates with Princess Flora, who is like related to obviously the guy that the sister from the first book is marrying. Am I explaining this well? Probably not. Both of them are kind of like hate to love, enemies to lovers kind of vibes, but I thought that they were both fine. I'm gonna put them both in the middle tier. I thought they were cute. I thought they were fun, like YA contemporaries. They're both like pretty short and pretty quick to read. I think I would have liked them a lot more when I was younger. I just think at this point in my life, they just felt a little more young, but they were still cute and I would still recommend them. They just weren't like my new favorite thing. Then we have The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This was another one I read in that historical romance blog, and I really liked this book. I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This is a sapphic historical romance, which I thought was really great. I, like, before really getting into the genre, just like paying more attention to it, I didn't know that many authors or that many books within the historical romance genre, so I didn't realize that there were that many diverse historical romances, so I was really happy to come across a sapphic one. I really liked it. I thought it was really cute. Next we have The Tea Dragon Festival by Kay O'Neill. Obviously this is another book in the Tea Dragon series, which is just like a very cute and wholesome middle grade series. The thing is, I've given both of them, the ones I've read so far, 5 stars, but I wouldn't consider them like books that I'm like absolutely loving and like are favorites of mine. They're not books that come to mind when I think of like my favorite books, but I do really enjoy them. So I'm gonna put it in I really like this, because even though I did give it 5 stars, it's not like a new favorite of all time that I'm gonna be like recommending endlessly and talking about all the time, but I think for what it is and for the age demographic, I think it's really, really great. I love how I said I was gonna be like brief and quick about all of these things, and I'm not being brief or quick. Next we have Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book, I think. I had to look at them on my shelf. Yes, this is the second one. I don't know why I get the second one and the third one confused, but this is the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. And this one you're following a different mystery that's happening in the same town. You're still following Pip as she solves this mystery in her town. And I did really like it. I didn't like it as much as the first one. I think I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. It's definitely not my favorite from the series. I think it's my least favorite actually. I did like the mystery and I liked where things went, but I didn't think it was as engaging or as like exciting, I guess, as the first one. I feel like the first one was really like elaborate. There were a lot of moving pieces, a lot of characters. You could tell that Holly Jackson had been like thinking about the plot of that book probably for a while, whereas this one, I still think it was like well put together. It just didn't feel like as big and as elaborate, so I just didn't love it as much, but I still really like it, and I do really like this trilogy as a whole. Next we have Take a Hint, Danny Brown, which is the second book in the like Brown Sisters companion romance trilogy by Talia Hibbert, and I really liked this one. I don't know, is it a new favorite or is it in the I really like this tier? It does have the fake dating trope. We have Danny Brown and Zafir, is that his name? And they end up being like caught on camera of him like saving her from a like, basically it was just a fire drill, like there wasn't actually a fire, but he gets her out of the elevator and like is carrying her out, and they get videotaped and then it goes viral, and then it kind of will benefit both of them to fake date for certain reasons. And I really love fake dating. I don't know why. One of my favorite tropes again. And I really like Danny as a character. I liked Zafir as well as a love interest. He was just such a soft boy. And I don't know, is it a new favorite? It might be. I think I'm gonna put it in new favorite. Yeah, that seems right. We'll go with that. And then we have another romance. We have The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, which is the third book in the Kiss Quotient series, and this one I'm gonna put in I really like this as well. The thing is, I feel like I like the Kiss Quotient and this one for very different reasons. The Kiss Quotient was just super fun, super silly, and just like a really like lighthearted romance, which is what I wanted, and it was really great for that. Whereas The Heart Principle definitely is more of like, I wouldn't say it's just like a romance, I feel like it's more of like a hard-hitting contemporary that happens to have a romance as well. It definitely has these characters dealing with more difficult situations. They're both like struggling mentally and have things going on, and I just feel like it's definitely more hard-hitting than the previous 2 books in the series. It feels very different, but I really liked it for that, and I knew going into it that it was going to be different from the other 2, so my expectations were kind of set at the right place. And also the like main love interest is Quinn, who we've seen in the first 2 books, and I love him. I was so excited to get to his book because he was like my favorite character across the first 2 books, and he was just like a side character that would randomly show up. So love Quinn, love the Heart Principle, thought it was great. Next we have In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is a mystery thriller and it's set in 2 timelines, which you like bounce back and forth between each chapter. In this book you're following this like group of friends who became friends in college, and in the flashback chapters you're just seeing them like get to know each other, become friends, the things that they experienced in college, and when they were in school one of their friends was murdered and no one was ever like properly convicted of that murder. And then in the kind of present timeline, it's 10 years later, they're going back to their 10-year like college reunion, and when they get there someone is accusing one of the friends in this group of being the murderer. So then they're trying to figure out who was the actual murderer of their friend. And I do think that this book was well written in the sense that the dual timelines really worked. I feel like you were getting the pieces that you needed in the flashback chapters to add to the present day chapters just at the right time. You didn't know anything too far in advance or things that didn't really add anything at that time. I think the way she wrote the book was really well done, and I think there were always times where I'd be wanting to get back to the other timeline. When I was in the other one, I equally wanted to be in both, getting more and more information. So even though I think this book was well written and well paced, I didn't necessarily love it because I predicted exactly how it was going to go like 20% of the way through the book. I knew exactly who was going to be, who the murderer was. I knew just like how certain characters were going to play a role. Like I just kind of had a feeling of exactly the way it was going to play out super early on into the book, which made it not as engaging as it could have been. I think if I had been completely surprised by the reveals, I would have really loved this book, but I wasn't. So I think I'm going to put this in the it's fine tier. I was pretty disappointed in it because I really did want to like it, but I do think it was like well written. I just wish that I didn't predict exactly the outcome that the book was going to have. Okay, next we have Love and Olives by Jenna Evans Welch. This is the 3rd and final book, I think, in the Love and Gelato series, which is another like companion series. This is like a YA contemporary romance kind of vibe, and I really like this series. I know it's nothing like unique or super special, and I don't know, I think for what it is, it does it well, and I don't know, I think they're really cute. And this one definitely had some more like hard-hitting topics, which is why I kind of like them, because I don't think going into especially Love and Gelato, the first one in this series, I wasn't expecting it to deal with more hard-hitting, heavier topics. I was just expecting it to be really like fluffy and just really fun, which it does have those moments, but I think it's a good balance. I really like this one. I don't know if I like it more than Love and Gelato, but it could potentially be my favorite in the series. I don't know, but I am gonna put this in. I really like this. These books aren't like anything that I'm like, wow, favorite series, like absolutely love it, but I do like them for what they are. Okay, so the next book I have to talk about is You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao, and I know a lot of people really love this book, but unfortunately I am not one of them. This book, you're following this girl Julie whose boyfriend dies, and she ends up calling his phone just to hear his voicemail, to hear his voice like one last time, and he ends up picking up the phone, and she's kind of like, how is this happening? Your funeral was literally the other day, like how is this working? And the book isn't really about them figuring out like how or why he's able to talk to her through the phone, but it's more so just about like discussing grief and loss. And I like can appreciate the discussion on grief and loss that this book had, especially in a young adult novel, showing that people handle loss and grief in different ways, because all of these characters handle his death differently. And that's why, even though I didn't love this book, I am a part of the Julie defense squad. Not only did characters in the book give her a lot of crap for the way that she chose to grieve, but I know a lot of readers also don't like her as a character. I don't know if it's because of why and how she's grieving or experiencing this loss. I don't know why readers don't particularly like her, but when I was reading the book, it was a little frustrating to have characters in the book give Julie a hard time for the way that she was choosing to grieve and how she was handling this loss. They definitely were annoyed with her for not grieving in the way that they thought she should be. She wasn't doing the things that they were doing, so therefore how she was choosing to handle it was wrong. And it really angered me, because people handle grief and loss very differently, and it really angered me. I think in the book it's kind of discussed a little bit how, you know, these characters are all handling it differently, so at least it was like addressed in the book. But I don't understand why people don't like Julie. Like, she's just a teen girl grieving the loss of her boyfriend. Just leave her alone. Anyway, but other than that, I just really didn't love this book. I didn't really connect with the characters or the story, and so I could recognize that very sad and emotional things were happening, and that these characters were experiencing were very sad. I just didn't fully connect with it. It didn't have an impact on me because of that disconnect that I had. And it's not because I didn't relate to what these characters were experiencing, because I do. It's more so just that I didn't connect with these particular characters and the story itself. So I think I'm going to put You've Reached Sam and Didn't Like This. I think I give it a 3-star because I just didn't want to take away from the discussions this book is having, but I didn't particularly like it myself. But I do think it is like an important story to have, especially in young adult, and I don't fault anyone for liking this book or feeling impacted by it. It just didn't particularly impact me in the way I think it was supposed to. This is not me being brief. Okay, next book, A Woman in Salt by Gabriela Garcia. I really like this. I'm going to put this in the I really like this tier. I read this for the 20-something book club hosted by Casey and Mafalda, and we had a whole live show on it, so I'll leave that link below as well. But I really liked it. It's like the perfect book to have for a book club because it's like a multi-generational story. Each chapter is in a different character's perspective. You're jumping around on the timelines, and I really liked getting the different stories and seeing the different characters and how they connect. And it was a book that I like after each chapter kind of wrote a little sticky note and stuck it in the book, like kind of summarizing the chapter and my thoughts on it and what things might mean, which I think added to my experience of reading this book. I just really enjoyed like dissecting this book, I guess, and I did really like it, so I think it makes sense to be in the I really like this tier. Okay, next we have House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I read this for my Stranger Things vlog. This is a very like creepy, unsettling book where the sisters disappear when they're younger and then they come back, but they're like kind of changed, and then years later one of the sisters disappears again, and it's just very creepy, very unsettling. And there was a lot of like, I don't know, just like, it was just a very like creepy, kind of gross book, but it was very mysterious. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it, so I think I'm gonna put it in It's Fine. Next I have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This is another romance that I thought was okay. I think I'm gonna put it in It's Fine. I didn't particularly love it, but I didn't hate it either. You're following this girl, August, who meets this girl, Jane, on the train, and they find out Jane is like trapped on the subway. She's like displaced in time from the 70s, so the whole book, August is like falling for her, but also trying to figure out a way to get her unstuck from this train, and they don't know if they unstick her, if she will go back in time, will go back to the 70s, or if she'll just like disappear, or what will happen. So there's kind of this like drama of like what's gonna happen if we help her. And to me, because I knew this was a romance and it's like a rule of romance for there to be a happily ever after, it kind of took all of the stakes out of that situation away, which in some way was fine because then I knew it was going to be okay in the end, which is nice to have that security. But I just feel like there was a lot of this book was them talking about them trying to get Jane off the subway and them trying to figure it out, and this being a very stressful situation, and it just kind of didn't impact me, or I just didn't really care that much because I figured it was gonna be okay in the end. So I did like it, but it wasn't my favorite romance by any means. Then we have The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. This is a mystery where this woman's husband just disappears without a trace, and her like stepdaughter try to kind of figure out what happened to him. This was a book that I enjoyed in the moment, but it's not one that has really stuck with me. I have not even thought about this book since I finished it. I just didn't particularly love it, but I thought like it was fine in the moment, so I'm gonna put it in the It's Fine tier. Next we have Graceling by Kristen Cashore. This was one of my 5-star predictions for this year. I read it in a vlog and I did really enjoy it. I think I'm gonna put it in the I really like this tier. It definitely isn't a new favorite, but I did like end up buying like the rest of the books in the series, and I'm excited to continue on. I think that there could be a potential new favorite book within that series because I did really like the world and the characters and the romance, so I feel like there could potentially within that series be a new favorite book, but this first one was just like a solid like 4-star for me. Next we have Heartstopper Volume 4 by Alice Oseman. Y'all already know it's in the new favorite tier. I absolutely love Heartstopper so much. I love the series, I love the show, and they just mean a lot to me, and the characters are just so special, and it's just such a cute story, while also like this one is definitely dealing with a lot more heavier topics. A lot of Charlie's mental health is really like, that's really the focal point of this volume, and I think for that reason there was another layer of it being kind of more special to me, and just the things that were kind of discussed. So yeah, I love Heartstopper so much, and I know I talk about it endlessly, like so many other people talk about it, so it's either you're someone watching this like agreeing with me because you love it too, or you're sick of hearing about Heartstopper all the time. So that's all I'll say, but I love it, so absolutely new favorite. I think Volume 4 might be my favorite volume. I feel like it's either volume 3 or volume 4. I go back and forth all the time. Okay, next we have the first book in the Bridgerton series. We have The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. And this is going to be the first book going in the boo tomato tier. I did not like this book. And it's one of those things where the first half was fine. It wasn't anything that I was absolutely loving. I think if it had continued on that trajectory, it would have been like maybe a 2 or 3 star. But there was just a turning point of something that happened that was really gross, really didn't appreciate it, didn't like where the story went after that, and it just kind of ruined the entire story for me. So it's going in the boo tomato tier. Don't recommend. The show is fine. I mean, the first season of the show is still not my favorite because it still kind of took things from the book that I didn't like. It changed it slightly, but not really, so I don't know. Season 1 was okay. Season 2, though, made some points. But The Duke and I, the book, not a fan. Okay, the next book is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane, and I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This is a fun, like, rom-com kind of vibe where this guy is like the handler for the celebrities on this, like, it's basically like The Bachelor, but it's like a fairy tale theme, and then there's a character that goes on the show and he doesn't really want to be there, but this guy who's on the show and the handler kind of have this like relationship that kind of starts to develop. I didn't explain that very well, but it's really cute, it's really fun, and I had a good time. So I really like this tier. Makes sense. Okay, next we have As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the 3rd book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, the final one, and I loved this book. I'm gonna put it in a new favorite because I don't know if it beats the first one as my favorite in the series. I don't think so, but I think it's my 2nd favorite. But I really loved it. I think Holly Jackson took a bit of a risk with this one because the first 2 follow a similar format, and this 3rd one, she kind of switched it up. She didn't exactly follow the same formula that she was following with the first 2 books, and I know that's why some people might not like this book because it's very different. I think she did take a little bit of a risk with this one, but I happen to love it for that. It just went in a way that I was not expecting, and I think that's why I love this series so much, because each book completely took me by surprise with where it went. So I really appreciate the risk that she took with doing something a bit different with this book, and I thought it was so well done. I absolutely loved it. I will say the last like few pages of this book, I didn't love that whole thing. I was just like, why are we doing this to my heart? But the rest of it was excellent. So I highly recommend the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy. Every book, I think, is incredible. Okay, the next book, Dark and Shallow Lies by Ginny Meyer Sane. This is another one I read for my Stranger Things vlog, but I didn't really love this book. It's a mystery where this girl's like friend from her hometown goes missing. So then she returns to this town like 6 months later to try and figure out what happened. And there's people in her town acting weird. There's like psychics in this town, but none of them have been able to figure out what happened. There's some weird strangers showing up in this town, and just like past mysteries kind of come up. It's just, it seems like a very promising premise, but a majority of this book was extremely boring, and then the kind of reveal at the end was not only predictable and underwhelming, but also just a little uncomfortable. So I think I gave this book 2 stars, but I think I am gonna put it in the boo tomato tier because I didn't really like this. Like, I don't know if there's anything that I thought I liked about this book. Like, maybe the atmosphere. I will say the setting was pretty good, but that's not enough to carry a whole book for me. So I think I'm gonna put it in the boo tomato tier. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, the next book is On My Rage by Saba, another one of my 5-star predictions for this year. And this is like not only a new favorite, but I think like looking at my books in this top tier is probably my favorite book that I've read this year. I absolutely loved this book. Saba is such an incredible writer. She creates characters that are so flawed, but also like just trying their best and you want to root for, and her writing is incredible, and I just cried so much reading this book. It's very emotional, very sad, but I think just very real, and I can't talk about this book enough. I absolutely love it. Please read it. If you take anything from this video, it's to read All My Rage by Saba. Definitely, I think my favorite book that I read this year. Like, it's incredible. Next we have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, and this is going in the not rating tier because the vlog where I'm reading this hasn't come out yet. So my thoughts will be coming soon though. I hope to get that vlog up soon, but yeah. Stay tuned, but I'm not giving my thoughts yet. Next we have Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Sutanto. I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. I read the first one, Diary for Aunties, absolutely loved that book, thought it was so much fun. This one didn't do as much for me as the first one, but I still really liked it. You're following this girl Medi in this book. She is getting married and she finds out that the mafia are like infiltrating her wedding and are gonna take someone out on her wedding day. So her and her aunties are kind of trying to figure out who's the target and are trying to stop that from happening. And I think just like the premise of this one wasn't as interesting to me, or I just didn't like it as much as the first one. I still thought it was fun, still thought the book was chaotic, still thought this book was hilarious as well. I think just the humor and the characters themselves are so like endearing. So there were still a lot of really great things about this book. I just didn't think that the plot itself was as good as the first one. Then we have A Spark Within the Forge by Saba. This is one of the Ember in the Ashes like prequel graphic novels, and again, I'm kind of biased with Ember in the Ashes because it's like one of my favorite series and I just love it so much. So anything that Saboteur will give me from these characters in this world, I will take and I will love it. So I think I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. I really like both of the graphic novels that have come out so far with this series. They're definitely like not on the same level as the actual series for me, but I still really enjoy them. And like I said, I love getting more from these characters and from this world, so I was just happy to see my girl Laya again, you know? Next, we have Cinder's Adventure by Marissa Meyer, and this one is so hard to rank because it's literally just like fan fiction that Marissa Meyer wrote about her characters. And it's Cinder trying to get to her wedding, and it's like a choose your own adventure ebook, which is really cool, and all of the characters from all of her books show up. And she said it's not canon, it's literally like fan fiction for her own characters. And I had such a fun time reading this book. I thought like the choose your own adventure part, like being able to see all the different endings and seeing all the characters show up, like it was such a fun reading experience. Do I think the actual book and like content is good? Yes and no, because it's hard to say because it's not canon, but like it was fun to read. I think the problem that a lot of people had with this is that it wasn't just like a canon short story novella about Cinder's wedding, which I think is what a lot of us would have just preferred to have gotten instead of this. But this was still fun, so I'm gonna put it in I really like this. Again, like an Ember in the Ashes, very biased when it comes to any sort of Lunar Chronicles content, because I will take any crumbs she will give me and I will appreciate them and I will love it. I definitely don't think this is like the best thing ever, but it was a fun reading experience, and I do hope someday we get like the actual Cinder wedding novella that's like canon and like actually is real and like actually just like a normal short story. But this was fun. It was a fun reading experience. I think the content within the ebook would put it on the it's fine tier, but because of the experience reading it, I'm gonna put it and keep it in the I really like this tier. And then we have City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare, the fourth book in the Mortal Instruments series. This one I'm also gonna put in it's fine. It's like maybe worse than City of Ashes. I haven't decided which one I dislike more because they're both not good for different reasons. But again, I do have a bit of a bias towards the Shadowhunter world, and so I'm gonna put it in it's fine. But there were some things in here that do frustrate me and that I don't like, but I also think there were some things in here that I don't remember happening, and I was like, oh, maybe she made some points, so I don't know. But I do think it's potentially the worst Shadowhunter book. I don't know, it might be worse than City of Ashes, I still haven't really decided. Okay, the next two books I'm just gonna do together because both of them are for vlogs, so I'm not going to talk about them yet, but I'm very excited for the vlog with those books to come out because I have a lot of thoughts on both of those books, both from Blood and Ash and The Love Hypothesis. So stay tuned. All right, we're reaching the end, folks. The next book is The Weight of the Stars by Kay Ingram. And I'm so happy I enjoyed this. I've read another book by the same author. I read Darling and did not like that book at all. So I'm happy to report that I like this one a lot more. I'm gonna put this in the I really like this tier. This is like a hard-hitting and emotional YA contemporary. It's sapphic. It has kind of the found family trope as well. So there's a lot of things in here that I do really love. It definitely, like I said, is an emotional story. And I know it's really like a lot of people find this book very emotional. They cry, and I can see why. I just didn't find it that emotional for me personally. Like it didn't hit me in that same way. It didn't impact me in the same way as others, but I still found it very emotional and I still really enjoyed the story. So I'm happy that I enjoyed it. Okay, next, The Cruel Prince, another book I'm reading for a vlog, so thoughts coming soon. And then the final book is A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown. This is actually the first book I read this year, so it's funny that we're ending on the first book I read, but I unfortunately didn't love this as much as the first one. I didn't think it was terrible, but I didn't love it like I loved A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, so I think I'm going to put this in the it's fine tier. The best way that I can kind of describe it is I feel like Roseanne Brown had this story and the publishers or whoever is in charge of this kind of forced her to split it into 2 books instead of just like one like longer standalone. It was put into 2 books and there just wasn't enough story and content to fill 2 books. So there was a big chunk of this book that just nothing was really happening and I just didn't feel that engaged. I also felt like some of the characters were acting a little funny. I did think that the ending was really incredible. I really liked the way everything wrapped up, so that's why I still somewhat enjoyed the book, but it just definitely didn't have the same impact on me as the first one. Definitely didn't love it as much, but I still like the duology as a whole and would still recommend it. But that's it. Those are all of the books that I've read so far this year. I am pretty happy with how this kind of turned out. I think I could probably move some things around if I really wanted to be nitpicky, but I think it's fine with where it is. Obviously, I wish I had more things on that very top tier, my new favorites tier, but I'm still happy with everything. I feel like when I've been reflecting a lot on my reading this year, I kind of keep thinking that I've had a very mediocre / like bad reading year, and there definitely have been a lot of like disappointing reads, books that I have not liked, books I've given 1 star, and just some books that have been just like average for me, but I have a lot of books in that second highest tier, so I don't think it's as bad as I keep thinking it is. So it's nice to see this and see that I haven't hated everything that I've read this year. It is a nice reminder that I have had some good books that I've read this year. But those are all of the books that I've read so far this year. Definitely let me know if you've read any of these books, your thoughts on them. What are some of your favorite books that you've read so far this year? If you have any standouts of the year so far, I'd love to know. Also let me know if you'd like to see a part 2 of this where I tier rank the rest of the books that I've read this year in the like December or maybe January of next year. I'd love to know if you would like to see that, but I think that's going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in my next one. Bye.